What's going on, Cubs fam? We are back for another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video. It is Thursday, my friends, and later today we have got Chewbacca 3PO, or whatever we're calling the new Chewbacca 3PO mashup coming. Lots of good stuff coming at you guys later today. But as you are waiting for that, I have got yet another Galactic Legends counter for you guys that is utilizing full Jedi, no gas, and no General Kenobi. You do have Jedi Luke in there, which might be a big catch to you guys, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because there are so many counters to Galactic Legends, but so few at the same time because so many of them have so many specific requirements. And to digest all of this, including the counter, I have brought on one of my favorite community resident experts, the one and only Fulbright. What's going on, Fulbright? How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing wonderful, Cubs. I appreciate you having me back on. I love coming on here.
Dude, we love having you here in the Cubs fam. People request you. A lot of times when stuff gets complicated, I see people in the chat like, can you bring Fulbright on to talk about this?
That's funny.
Yeah, so we're going to make this kind of a regular gig, not like a set weekly thing or anything, but Fulbright from time to time has some counters up his sleeve. And when Shadowlands is ready to talk a little bit more about those out in the open, Fulbright's going to come on. We're going to talk about some of these counters. And the first one you wanted to bring to the table here for the Cubs fam, Fulbright, is this team that we're seeing right here. By the way, link to Fulbright's stuff down in the comments below. He's making content himself. You guys should definitely check that out. So Fulbright, tell me a little bit about this counter and why it works.
Well, the beautiful thing about this particular counter is it's especially useful in Grand Arena because basically you're not utilizing gas, you're not utilizing
Right.
GK. You can still have a full Padme team. You can still have a full 501st team. There's all different kinds of things you can do. What makes this particular team work well, essentially, is having your Darth Revan or your Jedi Knight Revan fast enough to outspeed the Hux. Now, this particular team that you see attacking it has the double tank. So a lot of counters struggle against SLKR when there's a double tank. You know, actually,
yeah, you
when
see there, he goes before the Hux. That's important right there.
Yeah, it's important. But like earlier, you know, whenever me and you were trying to work out a counter before we did this video,
we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, but you were getting stuck behind Cruz. So imagine if you have two tanks.
Oh my gosh.
So that can be really frustrating. Yep. Well, this right here, you can bypass the taunts, and you can basically slow down the team by preventing Hux from being able to pass that turn meter, over to SLKR. It keeps him from ramping up. It keeps him from going into his ultimate status. And
you've got that dispel from Bastila as well, which helped. And oh my gosh, can you believe, I think something about Jedi Luke that just every time I see Jedi Luke footage, it just grips me, is just the sheer damage that he brings out. I mean, that was 100,000 on his basic. You add, Master's Training on that with Hermit Yoda, and that's just pretty dope, man.
Absolutely. And the other beautiful thing about this team is, you're using Old Ben. Where else are you going to use Old Ben?
Right.
So you're actually pulling a couple characters that a lot of people have discarded. They become afterthoughts. Yeah, they become afterthoughts. So you can kind of bring them back up. This right here is, like I said, really good for Grand Arena. You probably wouldn't use it in your regular arena because most people are putting the Frankenstein compositions in arena.
Right.
But for Grand Arena, this works out real well. And you could possibly use it in Territory War if somebody was going to set a composition similar to this.
I want to call out the beginning of this battle because I actually think that this is interesting because my gut feeling here, I've got it paused here, and I do apologize. The aspect ratio for this footage is a bit wonky. This was recorded on a tablet, I can tell, and so it's kind of cutting a few things off. But anyway, my gut feel here would be, let's go ahead and mark Hux. But what he does instead here, which I think is even better, is he does Revan's AoE, and he passes a turn to slow Luke because he's got that slow speed. Boom, Luke gets the turn, and then he stuns everyone, which is just fantastic way to start that. And then he passes the Master's Training over to Luke, who's going to get ramped up. And then obviously all those buffs from Bastila is just a great combo. And then he's actually going to mark over there on Sith Trooper, get him taken care of before he deals with Hux, and he's just managing the turn meter so well that he doesn't
That's
even
correct.
have to worry about Hux at the beginning of that battle. There you go. Sith Troopers out. Bassil's going to be able to spell that taunt, and then he takes care of Hux. I love the strategy here. Would you say this is very mod dependent as far as like having just god tier mods?
No, sir. All you just have to make sure that you go first. And whenever I say go first, I mean, go first over
After
Hux,
Kylo.
obviously. Yeah, SLKR is obviously going to go first.
You want us to mod our Jedi Revens to go 400 speed or whatever?
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, and you're right. We're passing turn meter around. We're eliminating the Sith Trooper, so he never gets off big hits. And then the stun, at the beginning, I mean, it just prevents them from ever getting going. They never get started. And since they can't get started, SLKR can't get to his ultimate.
This is a dope counter. This is really dope. You're gonna say something else?
Well, no, it's just one of those things where if you're fortunate enough to have Janet Luke, this opens up a lot of opportunities for you.
Yep, all the more reason to go out and get Jedi Luke. And I'm showing here, I've got another battle here that's showing a Jedi counter to Galactic Legend Rey. And this is an effective counter here, but I want to point out here, we've already kind of alluded to this, but this counter here using both General Kenobi and General Skywalker, and while may be effective in arena against some Galactic Legends compositions, this is eating up your Padme team, this is eating up your 501st team in Grand Arena, which can leave you really vulnerable in a lot of ways. And so being able to go in there and save that gas, save that General Kenobi, very, very useful for Grand Arena. Now, I want to kind of move the conversation here, Fulbright, on kind of how we ended up doing a video and how this, I guess, series was born with you and me. I was working on another counter. We saw this counter that came out today, Wiggins Bog. Shout out to Wiggins Bog, who put together a Thrawn-led team with, I'm trying to remember the exact copy. It was Thrawn lead, Vader, Traya, and a couple other characters. It wasn't using Watt, which was really notable, and I thought, I've got those characters. I had crew in there, and Relic 7 crew, and so I actually spent a little bit of money, got my crew up to Relic 7 so that I could test it out, and I was just struggling, and so I reached out to you, and we were talking about, what can we do to get this thing to work? I couldn't get it to work. We tried a couple other counters we couldn't get to work, and it just came down to not just my mods, but also how is the Galactic Legend specifically modded. And you kind of went on an interesting tangent on this, and I just wanted to give you a chance to explain this a little bit to the Cubs fam on why we're seeing so many different counters to Galactic Legends and kind of what makes them both very frustrating and kind of exciting for where you're sitting from a theory crafting perspective.
Oh, absolutely. We have never had meta teams like this before in this game, where just a slight mod variation or just changing out one character completely will stop what people consider for 2 or 3 days. This is the new thing. This is the counter.
Let me give you a quick example of that before you go on. The one character thing. I went up. I got my Vader team ready to counter Galactic Legends Rey. I got it to work several times against a comp, and then I went up against a guy who had Rex in there. And all it took was adding Rex into that counter. Tenacity up. Vader can't do anything. Dead. As it. Done. And there's a lot of examples of that. That's just one example of hundreds, probably, of variants that can just totally stop counters. And so it's like this interesting cat and mouse game you're playing.
Right. And like you were showing that Jedi team earlier, going against a Rey team. Right. Well, as soon as you put JTR as the second tank in that particular team, you have eliminated any Jedi team killing it.
Yeah.
unless you have Luke. So just one little character shift, and suddenly the whole counter falls apart. But it gets even more in depth than that. So in Shadowlands, we face all the highest end guilds in Territory Wars.
Yeah.
And everybody knows about this counter there. This is old news for everybody that's playing at that level. So, what everybody does is they find out ways to remod common things that you may have even seen before that will completely frustrate or disrupt the counters that everybody thinks are solid.
Yeah.
So you can go in and you can say, man, I win with this 100% of the time in arena. You get into territory war and you go, well, wait a second. Why do they have this character modded so totally differently? Well, then it's augmenting some part of the kit that will destroy the commonly known counter. It stops it in its tracks.
A great example of that. So modifying one stat. So when we were working on a specific counter before this video, before we filmed the video, we worked on modding my 5s a bit differently. And we took 5s up to 80% defense. And the effect that defense had on my 5s was astronomical to me. I could not believe how many hits he was taking. It was crazy. So it's little things like that you might not see. It's not just as simple as speed or offense. There's these little stats that can make a huge difference. So anyway, go on. I just wanted to call out an example.
Well, the beautiful thing about the Galactic Legends is, and on a lot of these counters, you only need one character fast. And speed doesn't become a serious thing, but super high tenacity, super high potency, super high defense,
right?
Stuff like that suddenly becomes the linchpin for something being successful, and also having it set right on your defense. Another common issue that we've encountered and we've created for our opponents as well is by altering the turn orders. So, sometimes speed isn't always the king,
right?
So you have to honestly look. It makes you have to think about the team even more. Say, okay, well, this one's going to go first, this one's going to go second, but let me look at how I'm modded for my speed. Well, if you can get the counter out of its natural turn order, it totally screws everything up. Right. And that is especially true with these new Vader teams. That there's all these different variations of Vader.
Yeah, and I'm starting to feel like Vader is a lot less reliable than people think. I think so. I mean, you see a lot of videos, you've seen a lot of footage of it working, and I've been able to get it to work. But there's just so much that can go wrong, and so many different compositions where you have to play it so differently, or you just get totally stonewalled on it. And I think this is why Vader hasn't been nerfed.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's funny because he's not going to be nerfed, because there is ways of modding the defense that will completely shut down the Vader team.
I think my shard got the memo too, and I'm kind of sad about it.
Your shard got the memo.
They got the memo, man.
Just a little bit of tenacity here, taking off some speed here, just totally throwing off the turn meter, and suddenly it starts falling apart.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, especially you take a look at all these different compositions. If you're going into a grand arena or you're going into a territory war or whatever, you can look at your opponents after mod lock, and you can see how they have things set up.
Right.
You may be modded for a totally different way of doing things.
Right.
And sometimes that works to your advantage. Sometimes that's to your total detriment. And I love it. I love it because you really have to think, and a lot of times you really have to adjust on the fly. You're sitting there going, man, I'm not set up for this particular deal. With the SLK comps on defense, there's 3 different versions, 3 different ways of doing 4 different ways of doing all first order comps. And then you can throw in some Sith Empire. You can throw in, these other tunes into it to just completely wreak havoc on the known counters. So right when SLK first come off, everybody knows about the DR counter, for example.
Right.
There was the original DR counter. Well, then that went away. Well, people started adding Malik in there or whatever, and it went away. Well, it didn't go away because, there's another way you can actually mod it to get around the Malik, But then if they have a First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter pilot in there, well, now it doesn't work again. So, it's just a chess match with your opponent. Especially in Grand Arena.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, all of the Cubs fam out there that do enjoy Grand Arena, right whenever it locks and who your opponents are going to be, look at how they have their mods set up. All the opponents, all 8 of them or 7 of them. Look at how everybody's got their mods set up, and then you can go back and look at their Grand Arena history and kind of see what their tendencies are, and it gives you a good idea of how they're going to try to use their stuff.
Right.
You know, and then the best advice I can give anybody that's struggling with these Galactic Legends, because everybody is struggling with Galactic Legends from top to bottom.
Yeah.
You know, there is no doubt about that. You know, is to try to find, you know, a common a counter, kind of like the one that we were talking about with all Jedi. You know, where you can have a little bit of variation, where you've got a tune or two that you can take in and out depending on what you might see. And if you can set it up like that, you can have 3 or 4 different variations ready for offense too. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting kind of pigeonholed, is they're setting up for just one counter, and then they act like they're at a total loss whenever they see something that's a variation.
So I guess that's kind of the moral of all of this, because I was sitting here thinking, you know, for the you kind of beat me to the punch of, okay, so it's hard. Like, what does this mean for me? And I think a lot of it is that it used to be you figure out how to counter something and you're done. In this case, you're not. There is a lot of, if you want to be consistently countering Galactic Legends, unless you're using your SLKR, if you've got him for everything, then it's going to be a matter of figuring out 3 to 4 different counters and doing a lot of testing to get that to work and getting your mods there. And for that, I definitely recommend getting yourself in a solid community if you're not in a solid community, or finding a good group where there's some mod gurus that can help you. I know Shadowlands is a great example of that. We got a lot of that in ANZGC too, or in various other communities in the game. So, well, Fulbright,
I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
I want to finish with one last thing that's for people to consider.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we haven't thought of everything in Shadowlands. I know that.
Really?
You know, there's always going to be, there's going to be new stuff that's going to be popping up all the time.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, right now we have 27 different variations of defenses that you can set with SLKR and counters to the Galactic Legends. 27 different variations of defenses and offenses. There's 27 different setups. Right? Wow. That, you know, when you add up all the defenses and offenses together, that we know of ourselves, you know, and I'm sure there's other communities that may have thought of more ways of doing it and more counters, you know, but, you know, I can tell anybody out there, if you're really struggling with it, like you said, try to find a community, you know, where there's some good people in there thinking about this, talking about it, and working it out with everybody, because that's the only way you're going to learn all of them. And that's the only way you're going to find enjoyment and really fulfillment from the game, you know, is to be able to actually use your tunes and have a good time and be confident knowing that you can go against anybody that's at your level with these, you know, whether you have them or not. Because, you know, I know of 2 or 3 people that only have one Galactic Legend that beat every one of their Grand Arena rounds, and everybody that they faced had 2. You know, so it's possible. You just have to be around the right people, you know, and like-minded people that are still loving the game, still want to do good things with the game, still want to collaborate with other people and have a good time. You know, and that's
very well said.
Best thing about it is because relying back to the community, and they are difficult, they are frustrating. There is no doubt about it. But once you kind of get them down, it's extremely rewarding too.
I love that, and I remember the first time I beat a Galactic Legend with my Vader, I lost it on stream. It was just an amazing feeling, and so I mean, I think you could. There's a couple different arguments I think we could make on this. Is this good for the game? Is this bad for the game? I think I can personally see both ways. The characters feel broken in a lot of ways to me, but there's also a lot that could make the argument that it really brings you together, and it's something that's really exciting. There's a lot of theory crafting that goes into it, and that's something that I felt like for a long time was kind of dead in Galaxy of Heroes. There wasn't a lot of theory crafting, and as overpowered as Galactic Legends seem to me, they sure have blown theory crafting wide open, especially in the late game.
Well.
Yeah,
it is alive and well. Theory crafting.
And I think that's a good thing. I mean, it's discouraging, I think, for a lot of people who don't have them, but if you put the effort in, there's a lot of reward there. And as time goes on and as we get more accustomed to this, you get more used to it, I think it becomes more of a positive than anything. So anyway, Fulbright, gotta thank you for coming on, man. I think this was a great discussion. Thanks for sharing the counter with us, and we'll be back soon with some more counter videos, right?
I appreciate it, man. I look forward to it.
All right. Be sure to check out Fulbright stuff. Again, I got a link down below in the description. And as always, my brothers, don't forget,